3, 2, 1.
Wisecrackers.
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 Wisecrackers. Starting now.
What's up, y'all? This is Let's Get Crackin, the NBA segment. All have heard it before.
We done with the 90s.
We're done with the 90s.
We're done
Man,
with the
fuck
90s.
the 90s.
Done
We
with
done
the
seen
80s
the
and
film.
90s. Let me just start off because I am probably the most in the middle out of everyone here. So let me just start it off before it becomes war. I think there's a lot of common ground here that is not being accepted. So let me get it out of the way so we can get to the good stuff.
Take my hat off.
The best players in every decade could play in any decade if they were given the same tools, if they had the same footage and training to go off of. Absolutely they could. With that being said, the game evolves, and a lot of it is obviously you got to give credit to the people of the past, but a lot of it is also rule changes. We see a lot of people like Magic and Jordan, and we're like, yeah, they're great, but they have no bag. Part of that is because they weren't allowed to have the full bag. You know, a lot of the moves that they would want to do, they couldn't do. So they were like, I guess I'll just look like this. I guess I'll just be as stiff as possible. All the other players, I think we can agree, like role players probably would not make it in today's league because they do not have, and if they had the structure, maybe, but it's still a long shot for them to get where they need to go to compare to like Jamal Crawford. Jamal Crawford would probably cook like what, 80, 90% of players in the past, all of the NBA, but that's not because, you know, Jamal has that advantage of having all the tape and being allowed to do more. Jordan, he looks a lot of times like he doesn't have a left hand, but a lot of times he just didn't have to use the left hand. If you look and they chart every time he went left and right, he went left from 90 to 92. He went left about 50% of the time. 51% of his moves were to the left and the rest were to the right. He shot at a much higher, like 65% efficiency when going to the right, but he still did 51 to the left. That's pretty good. Like, obviously, he's going to go right every time if he can, because he was just that much better than everyone around him. That being said, if you took Jordan in the bubble, like in a bubble right now, you just time traveled him in his prime to today, he wouldn't be more than Kobe. He would just be as good as Kobe, which isn't an insult to Jordan, but that's just how much the game has evolved.
Man, he'll be James Harden.
I want to say, man, I love how you started out with saying, like, because I agree with you that they played their era. They played the system that they were put up in. But I love how you said if they were given the same tools as the modern players, a.k.a. making them an entirely different player, then they would be better.
Add like some sports science on their knees, put like an extra like 15 on a 3-point shot. Maybe, yeah, they'll be able to play in today's league. But in my opinion, 90s basketball, bro, and the attitude era to a lesser extent has gone into trending territory the last 2 weeks. People are constantly explaining their reasons on why they're not supporting the golden age of basketball. And because on the surface, the golden age of basketball, when you get into the thick of it, it's a little overrated, it's a little unorganized, it's slow, it's clunky. The basketball players that were aided to this style of play were the ones with the high vertical, bro. Because, like, I got a couple of bullet points for the first half of this. Point guards in the 90s were pretty shit into, like, 95, 96. Because a lot of them were seen turning their backs to when they're dribbling up court before even crossing half court. And in today's NBA, that shit is getting cooked, bro. You put your back to me, bro. I'm poking that shit 18 times, bro. The referee got to call the foul. Because it shows me that you don't know how to dribble the ball, bro. If you got to turn your back to your defender and you're the ball handler, you're the floor general, that is not a good sign. Players were seen making terrible shot choices early in the shot clock. Most importantly, you can see players standing on top of each other, stuck in the paint, waiting for a guard or a wing to come flying down the lane just so they could swing on said player. Because, you know, in the 90s, they claimed that their defense was top tier, but mainly the motherfuckers were just clotheslining from hell, bro. Like, every time somebody with a 35-inch vertical comes down the lane, they know that first guy doesn't have the first step to beat Dominique Wilkins or Michael Jordan. So what are they going to do? They're going to just throw all 285 pounds on his shoulders, bro. That's not basketball. I understand the rules were a certain way, but that's just not basketball. Like, even when guys do that shit now, I'm glad they're giving out flagrant twos and 2 game suspensions, bro. Because you shouldn't have to do that to stop a motherfucker, bro. If you can't stop him, you just can't stop him, bro. You just gotta charge it to the game. But what you not about to sit here and tell me is that just so you could win this regular season game, you're about to clothesline the best player on the other team because you can't stop him. That is corny. That is not good basketball. And that's why I don't like the 90s. I have more reasons, but I want everybody to get their shit.
I was gonna go to the defense thing too and say like, I feel like it might actually be more impressive to be a really good defensive player in the modern era than it was to be a really good defensive player in the 80s and 90s, because old heads always want to talk about, you know, the rules don't allow for defense no more. The rules can't let you play defense. So if you're a really good defensive player in this era, in this offensive era, you can't just be going clotheslining people, just dropping all 250 pounds of your body onto him. You have to actually be a tactically, skillfully good defender to play good defense and be defensive player of the year.
Herb Jones don't be asking. He don't be needing to clothesline nobody. He don't need no hand checking. He don't need none of that extra shit, bro. He got that lateral quickness. He got that dog in him. And he's gonna make sure that you
Because
have
Scotty
a bad
Scotty
time.
Pippen never had any lateral quickness. That's something we all know, right? So it's slow and clunky, and it's these players don't know how to dribble, right? Do you know how hard it is to dribble compared to when you're allowed to cup the ball and walk with it? You ever tried
Oh,
playing basketball?
you mean what Allen Iverson made famous in the
No,
90s?
no. First of all,
And then
Allen Iverson was more into the 2000s. Second of all,
But didn't he cook Jordan as a rookie? Isn't that in the
second of
90s?
all,
Drafted in '95. That's not.
second of
But I'm
all,
gonna let him cook. I'm gonna let him cook.
he was
Please.
one of the first
Lord,
ones to start cupping the ball because he realized that people could get away with it. Up until that point, it was more on the side of the ball. If we're going to be real, one of the things that this has really gave me an appreciation for is players like Bob Cousy and point guards from back in the 50s. And I see your face, LBJ, but if you go back and you watch, look at what they called a travel for. Look at if if your hand wasn't right directly above the top of the ball, you got called for a travel.
But what does that have to do with him never shooting above 40% in his whole career?
No, but I'm not. I didn't say that I've got that he's a better player than anything modern. You see, this is what it's going to be. It's going to be you fought against me, and I'm ready for it. Okay, so if you're going to take what I've said out of context, then that's fine. Do you know what I mean? But what I said was I've got more appreciation. I didn't say he's a better shooter than anyone now. I said I've got more appreciation because what they were playing was basketball. It wasn't picking the ball up and swinging it whatever way you wanted to. It was you had to move with your hand above the ball at all times. And any second that you didn't, you were called for a travel. So I've got more appreciation now for their dribbling ability. The same goes throughout the years. If anything, it's got easier to dribble for multiple reasons. First of all, you won't get called for travels. Second of all, you've got a gather step now, which, I mean, LBJ, if you want to be real, and you know how much I love my Europeans and that, but you can thank the Europeans for that. It's literally the Euro step. Manu Ginobili was the one who basically popularized that kind of move. Back in the time of Isaiah Thomas and then into Jordan era, that's when they were using the sides of the ball. They were
correct.
trying to kind of overcome the rules as they were, and they got away with it because people wanted to see more attacking basketball. But now we may as well just tear the rule book up. You may as well just literally just put two hands on the ball and walk up the court. And you know what's funny? We've literally seen Michael Jordan. We've literally seen LeBron James do that. Look at players pointing at him, just going, "That's as blatant as travel as you're ever going to see,"
Brilliance.
and the game just carries on.
Hey
So
man, Stephen Curry did it too, bro. They all, bro,
exactly,
everybody got away with a travel
exactly.
before.
No,
But your
but
man's
it's
Michael
never.
Jordan used
The
to get
thing
away
is,
with
though,
murder back in the
it's
day.
never been more blatant. And you say this, Cap, but this is based on stories. Like most of the this that I'm getting in terms of the periods and how defense changed and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give credit to the man who deserves the credit. YouTube Thinking Basketball does a fantastic section on this. And basically, I implore anyone to go and watch it, because if you watch how difficult it was to dribble a basketball in the 50s, you will instantly have more respect for any point guard, which is a true point guard back then, by the way, not a not a combo guard, none of this. It was like a proper point guard, whether you like it or not.
I do get where you're coming
You
from.
will
when it
get
comes
more
to
respect for what they did and how hard it was to do it. That's
I-
all I'm
I-
saying.
listen.
I'm not saying the 50s was a better era. I'm not saying Bob Cousy was a great shooter. I'm just saying it's a hell of a
Okay,
lot
guys.
harder to dribble, and he
I was
deserves
about
a
to
lot
jump in
more
and say,
respect.
listen,
It was very difficult to dribble back in the 50s because like a lot of guys they would just keep it with one hand, but they would keep that dribble going. Like I give guys in the 50s and the 60s that like they kept the ball on the string, but I'm not giving it to the 90s because those motherfuckers do not have the ball on the string, bro. Those guys just can't dribble, bro. You are able to use both hands a lot of times. You would see guys. I'm not trying to pinpoint nobody, but I've seen a lot of Bulls highlights because motherfuckers wanted to pinpoint Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen for being shit. And I've seen a lot of times where Scottie Pippen
and
would try to
also like
dribble the ball to the
you
left
can give
hand
credit.
and would literally act like he doesn't even have the left hand. He would just throw it over there and then try to get it with his right hand so he wouldn't have to use his left. And I'm just like, bro, why are we doing this? Why is it?
What you're
why
doing, Cap,
this
is
situated
what
like
you're
this?
doing is understandable. You're talking about like positionless basketball. Everyone needs to be able to dribble at the level that you've become accustomed to. I'm not disputing that. Steph Curry's a better dribbler than Michael Jordan. You know, Kyrie's one of the best dribblers of all time. I still think there's a discussion to be had with Kyrie, AI, and Isaiah Thomas. But the thing is, I've seen Kyrie walk with the ball far more times than either of those two. Now, obviously, I've seen more of Kyrie, so that's fair to say, but I've never seen more blatant travels than what Kyrie can get away with. Now, that doesn't mean he's not skillful, doesn't mean that he's not one of the best dribblers of all time. It just means that the rules allow for him to get away with more spectacular plays that other players would have been called for. And I think that this is where the disconnect comes. Another thing that you said was about the shot choices early in the shot clock. I absolutely agree. And that's because the game was based on isolation. So it was all ISO everywhere. So you basically, it was mano a mano. And then you get into your head and you're like, I've just got to beat him whatever way I can
You
beat
gotta
him.
cook them,
The
yeah, man.
game now is
That's bad
far
basketball.
more cerebral. Absolutely. I'm not taking that away. But that's down to coaching. That's not down to players. And that coaching started in the 90s.
First of all, I am so proud of the NBA fandom right now for going back and consuming film like they should have done all along.
Of course, facts.
Right. So I'm proud of that. Right. Contain like really do consume the history of the league. More importantly, though, like this feels like a maturity moment for the fandom because the NBA, if we're being honest, it's not that, especially in the modern era, whether you can call that the 3-point era or not. Like you have a multi-generational fan base that the NBA doesn't know what to do with. And I think that's the real beef. Truthfully, from a business perspective, for us to have the NBA today, they needed a whole bunch of propaganda. And bunch of that propaganda is the legend of Michael Jordan. The current NBA fandom, the new NBA fan is not buying the legend. They're not taking it as is. They're saying, okay, I want to get into this NBA thing. You know what, whether it's a legacy of Kobe, whether it's LeBron James making history every night, it's like I want to get in, and they are just not buying.
But Mibs, can I ask you the question? Why do you think they're doing that?
Why aren't they buying in?
Now, why are they going back? Is it
to speak for
Is it
themselves?
A, to appreciate basketball and see how it's changed?
I know
Or
why
is
they're
it
going
B,
back.
to pick up every slight thing, twist it in their favor so that LeBron can be the GOAT?
So
I don't think it's
think
either
either of those.
I think
bro.
There's nothing to do
Please,
with LeBron.
he asked me a question.
It has nothing to do with LeBron. It's literally trading because of LeBron. It's trending.
he asked me-
I don't
He asked
think
me a
it has
question
anything
here.
to do with LeBron because
I don't
as soon
think
as
it
that
has
That's
anything
happened,
to do with
that is
LeBron.
laughable. You've literally
because
already
as soon as
brought
that
up
happened
Michael
with the 90s
Jordan.
players, they
Who is
started
Michael Jordan
picking up.
always compared to?
And then
They started
microcosm has to
picking
do
up
with the
on
MJ
points where
LeBron
LeBron
debate.
had
Yeah.
shitty moments, and it's like
LBJ, I
everybody
need
had
some
shitty
moderation
moments.
here.
Yeah, as far as we're done with the 90s, Jordan's a huge part of that, but they also tore down Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, I meant.
I agree. But they did that so that they could get like, oh, we're in the greatest
Yo,
era
put your
of
hand down,
basketball where we've got the best players, everyone else is a plumber. Do you know what I mean? That's one of the things that you'd always hear. Like, let's not pretend that this is some kind of scholarly mission to understand basketball.
I don't think it's that at all.
I feel like you're
I
I
think
think
it's
it
more so
massively
let's try to
derives
take this
from
aura off of
LeBron.
these players from the 90s that they try to glorify to be some end-all be-alls that could come in any era and drop motherfuckers off by
So
40.
Cap,
And
when's
it's
it,
like,
when's it this debate really heats up? Like recently, there's been different parts of it.
it heated
Obviously,
up about it heated up
3
about
months
2
ago.
3 weeks ago.
yeah, but no, when's
And
it
also,
like
like,
when's
it
when's
hasn't
it
just
start to
been-
be like your era's like shit? Like
It's
it was
when
it was LeBron and Jordan,
It's
and
when-
then
okay,
and then
okay.
it's not a coincidence that once LeBron breaks the scoring record, the Heat gets
Mhm.
turned up even further. Like you can't piss on my head and tell me it's raining. This is very
I'll be
LeBron
trying to,
centric.
bro. I'll be
I'm not
trying to
saying
tell y'all all
it's
the time.
definitively LeBron. I'm just saying large part of it is LeBron fans.
I'll be trying to tell you guys, bro, coincidences is never a thing, bro. Everything happens at a time frame for a reason. Yes, this probably is happening because LeBron James hit 40K.
It's
But at
happening
the
in a
same
micro.
time, it needed to
No,
happen. It needed to happen 3-4 years ago.
But
before
no,
Kobe
but Cap,
Bryant
it
passed
didn't
away,
need
bro.
to
It should've
happen.
been happening.
It didn't need to happen, and this is the thing. What might have needed to happen is people rounded out their basketball knowledge like they do with football. But what you don't tend to get with NFL is like fans deliberately trying to tear down the greats of the game in the past. That seems to be unique to NBA. MLB, there's more of an intelligent conversation.
Now let's hold
NFL,
right
there's more
there.
of an intelligent conversation.
But the
Ice
legacy of these
hockey
leagues
is
are so
more of an
different, Rich.
intelligent conversation. There's more respect paid and
the
there's more
way the
understanding.
NFL, the MLB, and the NBA have evolved is so vastly different that like the era changes between NBA and NFL is much different. Like it would be a lot easier to pick out a wide receiver from the 90s or the 80s like a Jerry Rice and put him in today's game than it would be to pick out a point guard from the 90s and put him in today's game because the leagues have just
Was it?
evolved differently. It's not a
Yo,
fair
I don't
comparison
even
to
think
say
it's
Hang on,
about-
but was it
NBA.
though? Because
Rich, I don't think
your
it's about any
question-
of those, Rich. Rich, I really do believe.
But hang on,
it's
Mibs,
about
I'm
what-
on my own here, so let me answer one question at a time. So it wouldn't be that difficult to take someone out of the 90s and put them in now and see them dominate, because Tyrese Halliburton is John Stockton with a worse jump shot.
A worse jump.
No,
A
Tyrese
worse looking
Halliburton
jump
is
shot,
no.
maybe.
Why are we doing this? What do
Listen,
you?
also,
Oh, yeah.
What?
like,
Think about it. Think
Instead
about
of
it. Like, John
throwing out
Stockton
hot
not only-
takes,
I'm not
we're gonna
thinking-
let
I'm not
Mibs
thinking
talk
about it.
since he's been trying
No,
to
but John
talk for like
Stockton
10
not only-
minutes.
Why is that a
Rich,
hot take?
Rich, let's let Mibs talk because he's been trying to talk for 10 minutes now.
Building up the history of sports leagues is difficult and it takes time. In the NFL, part of that legacy building is that at no given point in time, for a number of reasons, have they ever presented a single player to be bigger than the sport.
That is
Right.
the goal.
And so this is, I believe, people trying to reconcile
LeBron James.
the fact that Michael Jordan, regardless of what happens in a contemporary era, is always lauded than better than that era. And there's again this multi-generational gap saying, hey, sure, there's the off the court impact and the larger growth of the game, the larger popularity of the league around the world, cultural thing like literally rocking Air Jordans and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But they're wondering at what point does this guy become a man, right? Like he's treated as a basketball god, and people are going back and like he's and making the comment, I think he might have been just really good.
So
And then
LeBron James
statistically-
has never been made to look bigger than the sport. Is that what we're
Now,
saying?
I think the difference here for consistency, right? Michael Jordan has constantly been presented as bigger than basketball. Meanwhile, that is
Because he
not
was.
tied statistically to the game. LeBron James is literally the person to get the most buckets ever. It's okay to call him the best because he
But-
just gets buckets. But
Again,
when
no
you,
Mibs. Like you keep saying these things like no one's ever been bigger than the sport, right? That's literally what they've been trying to do to LeBron James out of high school. He was called the chosen one. He was told the king. This is not anything different. The difference is that Michael Jordan was so far heads and shoulders above everyone else in his competition that he actually earned that label on his own. Now, you want to talk about Nike and stuff like that, that's fine. That's marketing and all that. That's just another thing that Michael Jordan was better at. Like, you can
That's
talk about,
why
like,
the 90s is a little overrated, bro.
But
But
no,
the
it's not-
basketball
it's-
if there's
doesn't
one
it's
player
not,
that
because
have a
has
guy
head and
who-
shoulders better than everybody else, does that not?
It's like, also think about it.
That
You
means
No,
that
he
talk
was
about how
just
like
the best.
LeBron
saying that
and
we're not done. We're done with the 90s. It's justifiable, bro. If this
All right,
one guy is
wait
head and
until we
shoulders better
can.
than everybody else, that means this era can't be that good because that means
No,
everybody else sucks.
no, because it's
Think
easier
about it.
for
Think about it. Hold on, hold
LeBron
on, hold on.
to have been that much better in this era because it's more weighted towards the offense, less isolation. You know, and you've said this
But
before
how when there's
yourself,
better
Cap. You've
offensive
said this
players
to
than
you.
LeBron
You've said
James?
this yourself, Cap. You've said this yourself. I've heard you say this multiple times. LeBron James has got no bag, right? And you know what that leads to? It leads to a shitty mid-range game.
Whoa, them
Okay.
turnaround crazy.
But also, here's the thing: is
hang
that
on. So, in an era where it was harder because there was no defensive 3 seconds and you had the trees camped out waiting for you, Michael Jordan adjusted to what made the most sense because you also had like isolation defense, and his mid-range games is the greatest mid-range game of all time. KD's the only one in this era who even comes close to Michael Jordan's mid-range game. The disrespect of Michael Jordan is unreal. If you dropped him in today's game, right, the mid-range, people think this is a 3-point centric league, and it is. But where the real killers live is in the mid-range.
Mid-range.
And who was the best mid-range player of all time? Michael Jordan.
But you got to also remember in the 90s, there was that illegal defense where guys could not play the passing lanes or they would have to do a hard double. And when you do a hard double, that means Steve Kerr is wide the fuck open 3 feet to the right and he's going to hit that jumper every
But
single time.
we're not talking about the assists or whatever. We like I'm not here to say Michael Jordan's not like a better passer than LeBron James because
No,
LeBron
I'm
James
not
is
saying
like the
that. I'm
closest
still
thing to
going
the.
off of the era of the 90s as a
Well,
whole. You're
you
glorifying
can't do
Michael
that.
Jordan. I'm talking
You
about
can't.
the other 700 players of that era that were not that good. They were lackluster. They couldn't hit anything
Okay.
outside of a 15-foot jumper, and they couldn't create for their teammates. That's
Hang on.
the
So
be-all,
Hakeem
end-all.
Olajuwon, David Robertson, Karl Malone, Shaquille O'Neal, Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing, Grant Hill, Chris Webber, Tim Hardaway, Scottie Pippen. Stop me when any of these players.
Tim
aren't good
Hardaway.
enough to play.
Stop you right there. Tim Hardaway.
So
Well, listen,
all right. So before you got to those last four
started with
guys,
Alonzo Mourning and Tim Hardaway Jr. Tim
so
Hardaway.
before you got to those last four
Lonzo.
guys, those guards that came later on in this in the decade, the 94s and 95s of the world. Penny Hardaway was a little bit earlier. He's like 92, 93. But most of those guys came later on in the decade after the game started to evolve a little bit and motherfuckers was hitting the little 1-2 jab step and then they hit quick little crossover. And that's when a lot of these players from the 80s started getting their ass cooked because players started evolving. They had quicker handles. They had it on a leash a little bit more so they can get to the rim a little bit easier. They didn't have to always back you down and try to hit a turnaround jumper.
No, but
These guys were able to hit you with a quick move and get to the lane. But
we've
those
already
earlier guys,
agreed earlier though, Cap.
Charles
What
Barkley, David Robinson, all those guys, they couldn't hit no outside jumpers. The motherfuckers couldn't hit shit.
Those are
All
all
they
big
was
men.
was turn around, jump hooks, and dunking on people.
Yeah, but again, like what you're saying is okay. So Dwight Howard, you're talking about David Robertson. Let's give the comparison.
Mm-hmm.
Now we've got two Spurs fans in here. For me, Dwight Howard is a more agile, smarter, and more explosive Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard had the strength and the physical presence over him. And people talk about David Robinson. It's really interesting because people see David Robinson as this bruiser, but when you actually go back and watch his highlights, the technical ability is outstanding.
More of a turnaround, a little bit of a turnaround jumper, jump hooks.
Exactly. So it's not a question of there weren't players who could do that. Drazen Petrovic could have been one of the greatest scorers of all time. Unfortunately,
This is another person later on in the decade.
Yeah, okay. And another reason that it was easier for them is because they started to space the floor more and they started to dribble with using the side of their hands and sort of almost being underneath. So the point is, if you want to say we're done with the 90s, right, you have to ignore all of the evolution that got to the point where we are now. Because it was harder in the early 90s to score buckets Then there was the era where it kind of took off and there was an upswing in scoring towards the
You
late
want to know?
90s,
You
which
want to know what?
I
You wanna
agree
know
with. And another
what-
reason for that was the big influence of European players, which I've already pointed it out. And then there was the dead ball era, and we all know what happened there. And then the NBA was so desperate to stay relevant because they didn't have a Michael Jordan and that. They crowned this kid, which was unfair to do. They
How?
knew
Okay,
it was
hold on.
absolutely
I know I've
unfair
been
to
getting
do.
cut off, but I need to
Is it
interject on
unfair
this.
if he literally burst through the expectations as number one in scoring?
No.
I don't think so.
No, I'm not saying he didn't live up to the expectations. I'm giving him credit. I'm saying it was unfair and too much pressure for a kid, and he lived up to it in spite of it. I won't not give credit to LeBron James where it's due. I think it was unfair what they did to him. What happened with Jordan was he naturally became the GOAT. And in terms of, I don't want to use that phrase because it's just meaningless at this point, but he naturally became the best player. And
His
then
era, yeah.
the marketing followed. With LeBron James, they basically sat him down and just went, "You are the biggest hope in this league. You need to carry this league." And he did. And fair play to him. But for him to get to a point where that happened, first of all, Jordan had to set the marketing tone because Mibbs loves the marketing argument. So there is no NBA marketing without Michael Jordan. He basically single-handedly saved the sport in that direction.
The Emperor is
Magic and
wearing no
word?
clothes.
And then the second side of things is that for LeBron to be able to play with the rules that were there to that day, that was the evolution of the game. And then you've got the evolution of sports science and stuff like that, which allowed them to have the longevity to score 40,000 points. Like, do you think, I agree with you, by the way, in the defensive stakes, more so in the 80s, but like, you're not playing until you're 40 if you're playing in the 80s. I'm telling you that now because they were swiping you out the air. There was like really serious injuries and stuff like that, which is why it's kind of funny that Larry Bird's injury was done by helping his mother by paving the front.
But I'm kind of glad that you said that because, like, that's the thing. Like, this trend really did start with the we done with the 80s because the entire decade of the 80s was exactly what the first half of the 90s was. It was clunky. It was like it was fun to watch on fast breaks, but that half court offense, like when you go back and watch some of these conference finals games and these Eastern and these NBA finals games from the mid 80s, late 80s, early 90s, if it wasn't the Celtics and the Lakers, which it was just mainly because of the storyline, bro, this basketball was pretty fucking ugly. Like, it was just...
Listen, I absolutely agree with you. And like, at times, because it's what we were used to, we thought it was like the greatest thing and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that the 80s and the 90s was the best era in terms of the look of the game. I think there's a difference between, you know, having defense and being able to
What
play
about
to a
the
certain...
quality of the game, though, besides the look?
I think the quality of the game was good because it was competitive. It was more... What saves the 80s and 90s is the fire, the intensity. And that's what's missing in today's game. The rivalries were real rivalries.
I mean,
People
there's no real
actually hated
rivalry,
each
but
other.
the competitive nature is still there, bro. There's parity in the league. We don't know who's winning the championship this year.
I said that competitiveness happens after Christmas.
It does it though, not to the level that it did in the 80s and 90s. And again, like maybe you've kind of like got yourself into trouble here because you literally won't even watch basketball till after Christmas. So that's the product
Doesn't
that
matter.
you're trying to it does matter because that's the product you're trying to defend right now.
Hey, man.
No.
I watch it. And
I'm not defending the product, right?
No, I'm not. Listen, Cap, I'm not having a go at you. I'm just saying that Mibbs is out here telling me that we're done with the 90s, whereas in the 90s, opening day meant everything basketball-wise. You knew opening day you were going to get as good a game as you were at the end of the season until the playoffs. There was no low management. There was no, we're not ready.
These players are so talented and so physically gifted and so prepared to various degrees. I think what's crazy is, again, people are looking back and say, I was told that this man, Michael Jordan, is a god because he slayed demons throughout. And people are looking up and being like, oh no, the emperor has no clothes. That's exactly what's happened.
No, but you've said that before, and it's just a lazy quote that isn't being backed up by anything by yourself. Your biggest argument so far has been marketing, which to bring that up against Michael Jordan, of all people, is insane. But
he's a really good player. And
No,
no
he's not just a really
generational-
good basketball player. You've just said that the athleticism of players now is insane. Michael Jordan still holds the highest vert in combine history.
We are not about to defend him as his athleticism because of vert in
Oh, we're
today's
not.
league.
We're
Come
not. We're not gonna. So we're just gonna ignore it because it doesn't suit your point.
Well,
Is that
also,
what we're
Rich,
saying?
you
I'm
said
gonna
that
have Ellis
vertical
his
was
head
more
on
important in the
blocks.
90s.
And he's not even the third best shooting guard in the league.
The whole point of this debate is we are done with the 90s, and the answer is you're not. You're not done with the
Nah,
90s.
I'm-
You might want to be done with the 90s. You might think you're done with the 90s, but here's the kicker. Everything that's happening now is because of the 90s, and everything that happened in the 90s is because of the 80s, and everything that happened in the 80s is because of the 70s. You can't just cut out pieces of the story because
I'm cool
because you've
on
got
that.
such
Ain't
short
But-
attention span.
But the difference is people are correcting the notion that the 90s is better than a game that has been evolving. Like if you ask people today,
It's different.
if you ask people today, because people are like, oh man, the Wemby truthers are like, we're gonna be the old heads when we're like, oh, LeBron is so great, and people are like, Wemby would murder him, or the fourth grader right now who's gonna be the GOAT eventually would murder him. But all of us are gonna be like, no, because the game's gonna evolve.
No, but
LeBron will be cooked.
I don't think I'll be in that conversation because what I'm seeing now is more impressive than what I saw in the 2010s. These new players that are coming through, like Luka, Jokic, like Wemby, we're talking they're going to be in the greatest of what was that Wemby? You putting up the W?
Damn, no.
Wemby is to come. Wemby's like
no
a cross
Canadian
between.
love?
No, Shea is not in that bracket of those three. I'm sorry.
Stat pattern.
He might.
Bro,
He
Luka
might be.
Luka Doncic was ducking smoke the other day. That's all I gotta say.
He was hurt.
Yeah,
He ain't want to see Shea Gildrich. He ain't wanna
one
see
game where he was injured. Come on now. Like, listen, at the
I've
same
had a
time, you
player
can't defend this era of basketball and then have a go at Luka because he low managed. I'm sorry,
ducking
pick a
smoke,
lane.
just
Pick
like
a lane.
Embiid duck smoke.
No, Embiid definitely ducks smoke because every time Jokic comes to town, that guy gets the sniffles. Do you know what I mean? That's different.
Every time he goes to Jokic town, he plays in Philly. He don't play in Denver though.
The thing is, what makes my position easier to definitively defend, which is why I'm able to do it against 4 or 5 people, is the premise of being done with an entire decade is about as myopic as you can possibly get. Like I say, I went back and I was looking at these videos. I thought I might have been done with the 50s because of what other people said, but then when I actually went back and looked, I was able to find something that was important in the evolution of the game, and I was able to appreciate it. That's why you should be going back and looking at basketball, not to tear other people down.
You know something funny, Rich? When I go back and look at old basketball and I watch like an old game, I have more fun watching 70s basketball than I do the 90s basketball.
Because it was more intense?
And mind you, the 70s game is the game that they tried to discredit and say was shit because everybody was on cocaine, but spacing was better.
Because
Guys
to be fair, they were.
Better. The dribbling was better. The defense wasn't as ridiculous.
I had fun watching my cousin's middle school basketball. God damn.
Well, what I think is, I think when it comes to the 90s, I think people handpick certain players. They look at their weaknesses and they say that wouldn't work in today's game, right?
Because it won't.
No, again, no,
and
but
also,
that's not
like,
true
I wanna
because
say,
you're not taking into account that there's a lot of players out there who could shoot a mid-range level that you're going, oh, well, he couldn't hit the 3 ball, right? Not everyone sets up as just all 3-pointers. There are players that we look to now that are mid-range killers. Kawhi's a mid-range killer. DeMar DeRozan's
But Kawhi
a
can hit that 3 ball on a 34% clip.
He can. He absolutely can. And that's why, for me personally, I think Kawhi is the best player of this generation. It's just the fact that he hasn't been healthy enough to prove it. But every time he gets into the playoffs, try and stop that man. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I get where you're coming from. Kawhi Leonard is most definitely one of the top guys in this era, and he doesn't really get that same level of respect that a KD and LeBron gets because he didn't have the regular season MVP and all that dumb shit. But it's like, bro, defensive player of the year is defensive MVP in my opinion, and you should be on a winning team. Sorry, winning.
I think it'd be it's the one place where I'll say, obviously, as the advantage now is the guards, and it's because they've become combo guards. It's because the game has become positionless, and there's not as many players from the 90s that I would look at and think that they could transition. But in terms of power forwards or centers trying to play small ball 5 now. I think there's more than you think there is. I'm telling you now. Draymond Green is seen as like the best power forward of this era in terms of his defensive ability. Dennis Rodman could absolutely do everything that Draymond Green does.
I think they only saying that for Draymond is because he's won 4 championships.
Could you imagine Alonzo Mourning healthy as a small ball 5? Could you imagine David Robinson as a small ball 5?
Yeah.
Exactly. There's players that would transition into the modern game, and there's players that wouldn't. Same way that there's players that would struggle more in the past that don't struggle as much now. It's just a give and take situation. If you want to argue that this generation's better than the 90s, go for it. That's not the argument we're having today. The argument is we are done with the 90s, and I'm here to tell you you're not. You might think you are.
But the reason why this came up is because the assertion is that the 90s is better than the current generation. That's why that we're done with the 90s. That's where it came from.
Yeah, but that's because a lot of people who argue from both sides are excessive and can't find any middle ground. I'm happy to find middle ground. My argument, this segment is called We Are Done with the 90s. If you're going to make a statement like that, I'm going to tell you why you're not done with the 90s. If you're asking me what era is better, I think I enjoyed the 90s more because of the intensity, but I enjoy the current day now because of the spacing and because of the fact that the game has evolved in terms of scheming and stuff like that. And again, guess where that most of that came from? Greg Popovich. And guess who Greg Popovich was looking at? Obradovic, Jelko. So, and where did these people learn their craft? In the 90s. This is not a coincidence. They were smart, intelligent players who couldn't make it at the level and found a way to make it as a coach. So the game's more cerebral now than it's ever been. So there's a lot of physical specimens who played in the 90s that I don't think would be able to cut it now. But like I say, there's people you can take out who would absolutely be better than their contemporaries now. And Michael Jordan is one of them. Michael Jordan would have an easier time in this era than LeBron would have in the 90s, and I'll tell you why. LeBron James's biggest strength is his ability to go to the basket. He's a battering ram. One of the best we've ever seen at doing it. That's a lot harder to do when there's no defensive 3 seconds and someone like Dikembe Mutombo's waiting for you. Or Patrick Ewing, or Shaq, or whoever. Now, I'm not saying he wouldn't succeed. I'm just saying it'd be a damn sight harder for him. Whereas Michael Jordan, with the kind of spacing that he will get today, dear God, with no one waiting for him under the rim, people are so like, oh, but what about his 3-point shot? He wouldn't need a 3-point shot. He didn't need a 3-point shot in the 90s.
This is back to the lore. If he was today, you literally said this man would be a god.
No, but the thing is though,
we're
would.
done with the
If
90s.
you're giving him
We're done with the
evolution.
90s.
Hang on, you're giving them evolution, you're giving them sports science, you're giving them spacing, and you're taking away the trees that were waiting for them.
That's not the argument. We're putting them where they were right now.
No, because that's a pointless argument. Because so you're basically going, right, you can have 40 years of evolution on your side, and the fact that this is even still a debate after that is laughable.
Exactly, that's the whole point.
No, but it's the whole point the other way.
That's the whole point.
If it's taken you
we're not like discrediting the entire 90s. We're done with the 90s.
No, if it's taken you 40 years and the majority of people are still saying that Michael Jordan is the greatest player who ever lived, which I can back up as well.
Because they're not watching the games until now.
No, they're not. They are watching the games.
The whole debate began because old heads have been saying forever, look at, old heads told the younger guys, watch film, look at the actual game and you'll see. We went back and watched film and then we were like, you know what? Like, they were good for their era.
What were you watching?
But would they transition to today? No.
What were you watching? Okay, so Ray Allen played with LeBron James, right? Ray Allen played with LeBron James, won a championship with LeBron James, okay? Played against Michael Jordan. Have you ever seen what he's got to say about LeBron?
Well, haven't you been like discrediting the late 90s? Wasn't Allen drafted in 96, and haven't you been like kind of not talking about the late 90s because that's when the evolution started to transition to the more modern game?
No, I haven't discredited the 90s at all.
Yeah, but you were like, we can't talk about AI.
You were like,
because that was
hey,
later
like,
90s.
yeah, the way they dribble.
No, I didn't. At no point.
Allen Iverson changed the way we dribble.
I said the game started to get a bit easier in ways, but like that was before Jordan was peak Jordan. So, I mean, in this kind of debate, but what I won't have is people putting words in my mouth. At no point did I discredit the 90s. I've done everything the
I
exact
said late
opposite.
90s. Late 90s.
No, I wasn't discrediting it. I was just stating a fact. I'm not going to,
Well,
while I want to win the debate,
is
what I'm
that,
not going to do is lie or make things up. You know what I mean?
well, I'm not
So
lying.
I'm
Basically, what you
I'm
were
not
saying
saying
was,
that you're
is like
lying.
the
I'm
late
saying that
90s is
I'm
when
not
that
going to do
transitionary
that.
period.
So, but here's some
The late-
statistics for you. Final 24 seconds of a game, Jordan against LeBron. LeBron James shoots 35.7% in the final 24 seconds. Michael Jordan shoots 50%. That's without spacing, ISO, and with everyone
Okay,
knowing where the shots coming
that's
from.
great for a
Final
Jordan
10
versus
Yeah, that has
seconds.
nothing to do with the whole
That
decade.
has nothing to do with
No,
us
but
being done with the 90s
Hold
as a whole.
you've
We're
hang
done.
on. You've just said that Michael Jordan's all law and it doesn't exist. So I'm proving that it does.
Okay,
So,
cool.
Yo!
You just
No,
like
no,
how
not
people
okay.
on
Cool.
Twitter,
Let me
You keep
finish.
changing
Let
the
me
argument.
finish my points. I'm not changing the arguments. You're coming at me
Can
from
I get one
different
takeoff
sides.
before being talked over for
You're
once
coming
today?
Jace,
Because I've been talked over
try
like
and argue
50
with
fucking
5
times.
people, Jace. See how you get on. You are coming at me from all different sides, and what I am doing is answering the queries that you are giving me when you give me an opportunity to do so.
Well, what
Telling
I'm
me
trying to tell you
that
right
it's
now
not
is
about
that
Michael Jordan
you
after you've literally just said the emperor wears no clothes. We've gone back and looked at Michael Jordan. He's
that's
not
some
that
mid
guy.
shit.
It's all law, blah, blah, blah. And then I come up with statistics that significantly
Well,
prove
let
that
me
Michael
tell you
Jordan
that
was the killer that that people think LeBron is. You go, no, we're not allowed to do that. This isn't about Michael Jordan.
no,
If it's not
because
about
here's the
Michael
thing:
Jordan,
is
don't
that
tell
you
me
were
that the
like
law doesn't exist.
the lore
And
is
Me
I'm
built
pick
not
a
on
lane.
saying any of that. I'm just saying
Hey,
I'm
let
done
Jace talk,
with
Cap. Jace has been
the
trying to
90s.
talk this whole time.
You complained earlier about people cherry picking clips from the 90s and saying, "Look at how shit this is." You can't cherry pick a singular statistic and say, "Look at this. This is the
This is the
be all
NBA
end all."
Finals, the peak of the sport. What are you talking about? It's the most
You're
obvious
cherry picking a
comparison you
stat
could
like
ever
people
make.
cherry pick clips and say, "Look,
Oh,
here's this."
Jay, give it a rest. I'm
Something that was
cherry
stated
picking
earlier-
stats.
something
You've
that was
just
stated
said that
earlier was like-
LeBron is this fucking superstar and that Michael Jordan is something that never existed. I'm trying to explain to you why Michael Jordan has got the law that he's got, and you're going, no, that's just cherry picking stats. Final 24 seconds of games, final 10 seconds of games, and final. Michael Jordan blows LeBron out of the water. Field goals. You want to talk about field goal percentage? Jesus Christ. Go back and look at the statistics for playoffs for Jordan and LeBron.
It
There's no
comes
debate to be
down
had.
to the defense.
Look at his free
Yeah,
throws.
exactly, Cap.
The
Like,
No, it
defense-
doesn't
like
come down to the
LeBron
has
could
to
defense.
score
look
60
at
points
Michael
on Byron Russell. Byron Russell will get
Let's say the
smoked in
defense
this
has to look
era.
at Michael Jordan ISO on
Also, he
the
pushed
bum.
off on
Ridiculous.
Byron
That is
Russell.
Byron
Let's remember
Russell
that.
was
Like,
the
you're forgetting
bum
about
at
who's
any
defending
game.
them.
Right. So
LeBron is
no
getting
one in the
double teamed by
90s could
KD and
defend.
Andre
No,
Iguodala.
not Jordan.
Hang on. So no
Same
one
way
in the
LeBron.
90s could defend, but we're ignoring the fact that it's much easier in terms of spacing.
No, we're just pointing out the fact that in those finals, he was being guarded by Byron Russell or John Stockton. And also on that famous last shot, that wasn't his last shot because he went to the Wizards, he pushed off. Everyone knows he pushed off. Like, it's still not a great thing. Like, look at who LeBron went against. Look at Byron Russell.
It really does come down to the illegal defense, bro. Like when you look at it in the situations at hand, you say that it's easier to score in the 2010s than it is to score in the 90s, which is true. But in an ISO situation with 5 seconds left, when nobody can play the passing lane, stop a pass from getting to where it needs to get to, or you have to just do a hardcore double team, leaving a man wide the fuck open, and then your defense is going to continue to shift until the wide open shot is hit. It's a little bit different in today's day.
So being able to hand check,
force a guy to take a shot that he doesn't want to take. But
yeah. So being able to hand check and bump someone with the hip and it's allowed.
Your glorious king Luka Doncic even said in a podcast they still hand check because they can.
They don't. Not even close to. Not even close. Cap, you want to talk about false equivalencies? Go and look at hand checking in the 90s. They were fucking chopping your arms up.
You hand checking in the 90s. You keeping your hand on the man's hip the entire play compared to Nowadays,
No,
you have to
it's
do it
fine.
foot
It's
off,
fine.
Also,
It's
you
easier.
were
It's
talking
easier
about
to score in isolation. The spacing doesn't make any difference. Advancements in coaching doesn't make any difference. Being able to be pushed in the air doesn't make any difference to your shot. Like, this is ridiculous. This is absolutely
bro.
ridiculous at this point.
You're
I have
forgetting- you're
I
forgetting
have
that-
tried to meet you. I have tried to meet you halfway. I have given so much respect and tried to say, you know, I'm not going to disrespect this player. I'm not going to disrespect that player. And you've sat here and constantly derided the greatest player we've ever seen. And again, Ray Allen, before you try to sidetrack me on Ray Allen, oh, he came out in the 96. It doesn't matter what he came out in 96. He played against Michael Jordan. He played against LeBron, and he played with LeBron. You would think that he would be there saying, oh, LeBron's the greatest. Who does he think is the greatest player ever? Michael Jordan. Does he not know basketball?
For the NBA, bro. You got to keep the propaganda
Oh,
going.
fucking here comes the script. Another thing that I have to argue with that I can't. Like, you're not giving me anything. So
I mean,
all
I
of you were
was-
right about every
I
point
was
you've made.
thinking
You haven't
a lot.
conceded.
But
You haven't
everybody-
conceded a single point in this debate. So either I've been wrong for about a fucking hour, or and maybe just maybe you've looked at this as a point to say where, like, I'm not going to move from my stance. We've all gone back and we've done this and we've done that. This isn't a debate. It's 5 people, or 4, because LBJ hasn't really like piled on that much. 4 people who've just gone, no, you're wrong about every single point. That's not a debate.
I didn't
That's
say you
not a
were
debate.
wrong.
None of us have said those words.
none of us have said you're wrong. We're just saying that, like, you are overhyping the 90s, which is the whole reason this
to say,
debate
'cause,
started.
So hang on, you want to talk about push-offs? You want to talk about push-offs? Let's talk about illegal screens. Steph Curry. Oh, well, everyone gone quiet now.
Listen,
I'm
no,
not
listen,
gonna
the modern
say
game has
serious.
its flaws.
I'm
So
not
you're
just
not,
like the old
you're not,
game
you're not going to accept what Ray Allen said. You're not going to accept what Kawhi
I didn't know
Leonard
Ray
said.
Allen is like God in this scenario of like the
I
most
know, I
annoying
didn't know.
NBA
No,
player.
but what he is someone who played against both players and played with LeBron.
Do
So
you know how
have to
many people
respect
have
his
done that
opinion.
though besides Ray Allen? Like, why are you
we-
taking Ray
Joe
Allen's
O'Neal
take?
played with both.
You have to respect his opinion, whether you agree with it or not. He is coming from an informed position. Again, what you're doing is you're trying to just go, oh, well, Ray Allen isn't God. That's not a debate. That's just like a
It's
facetious
fact.
point.
He's not God. You're right.
Well, okay,
It's
if
just
that's
one
the
person's
if that's the
opinion.
level of if that's the level of debate you want to come with, that's fine. Good luck with that.
I mean,
So
hey,
back to
listen,
the actual
I'm
debate.
not
Ray Allen,
debating that. I'm just saying it's one person's opinion.
Kawhi Leonard has said the fundamentals are missing from the game compared to what they were in the 90s. He's on record as saying that.
He didn't
Steph
play in
Curry's
the
coming off
90s.
illegal
That's
screens.
didn't
a
play in the
coaching
90s.
issue.
He didn't play in the 90s.
But
No
I
shit.
understand
No
that.
shit.
But at
What
the
are we
same
doing here,
time,
lads? If you're gonna be farcical about it, then there's no point. I'll just start coming out with comedy answers to all your points.
well, in
Go on,
today's
make a
game,
point.
I'm not trying to do none of that. In today's game,
No, Daniel
a
wants to do
win-
that, so go on, make a point.
He's saying you were using Ray Allen's example as someone who played in the 90s and knew both, and then you use Kawhi Leonard who didn't do both.
So your argument
Right,
doesn't make
okay.
sense, is what I'm saying.
No, you two things can be true. If someone who's playing in the era now and who clearly has an understanding of basketball history is telling you that the fundamentals are not what you think they are in the game, I would probably listen to him, especially when he's probably one of the best mid-range shooters we've ever seen.
But what about like a top 3 point guard?
About the early part of the 90s. 'Cause I did most of my due diligence on the early part of the 90s because, like I said, the meat and potatoes for your argument of the 90s evolving the game does not come until 95, 96. From 89 to 93, the scoring in the league took a dip from like 109 to 101 points, and the pace took a dip from 100.5 to 95.1. I believe mainly until like 96, 95, where most of those guards come in, like AI, Kobe, Nash, Kidd, Mac, VC. The guards did not have the ability to play the game like these guys do now. They don't have the same level of dribbling prowess. They don't have the same level of just cutthroatness when it comes to hooking the defense. Like you said, the fundamentals was the main piece of basketball back in those days. So you had to move the ball. You had to be able to get the ball to other guys because most guys on the court couldn't beat the guy in front of them. You're talking about Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, the reason why he was able to do what he did was because he was faster and he jumped higher than most guys. And when he got past them on that first step, there's only one guy left down there, and there's some clunky big man that ain't about to do shit with him, bro. And the wings were not asked to create offense.
What do you mean? How are they not gonna do shit with him? Like, why did you just say they're not gonna do shit with him? So like, it's easier to get past fucking Dikembe Mutombo than Kevon Looney.
I'm not talking. I ain't say nothing about get past.
Why are you comparing?
You pick the players. You pick the players. You pick them.
Those guys
Rudy Gobert.
I'm talking about
Rudy Gobert.
the guy he has to beat.
Cool. I'll take Hakeem.
The guy that he has to beat to get to the rim is a nobody, and then he comes down there. He has a higher vertical than all these big men. So
they're not nobodies though, because we've already accepted that the best players in the 90s outside of Michael Jordan were the big fucking trees, the centers, when the centers dominated the game.
All of them, bro.
Exactly. So this is why this goes back to what I was saying before. The people are telling me he's not an athletic specimen. He was jumping over 7-footers.
Everybody's jumping over 7-footers. We just seen Aaron Gordon dunk over Taco Fall in the dunk contest.
Yeah, Aaron Gordon's a dunk specialist who had a lower vert than Michael Jordan.
Of course he does, but he's still banging on 7-footers.
That's amazing. But the 7-footers he's doing it on aren't consistently as defensively sound and sitting in the key waiting for him. It's not the same. Like do you know how many? Do you know how the Golden State Warriors got most of their championships? 3 ways, right? If you watch the Warriors, I wish Richie was here. First of all, obviously that 3-point shot, the way they were able to move the ball. Okay, spacing. Second of all, it was illegal screening.
Hey man,
no, don't aim at me. It was illegal screening. No, so it's illegal screening. And the third way, hang on, Cap. The third way.
We'll be here all day talking about the referees.
No, but the third way they were able to do it, Cap, which is the most important way, which is why it makes it so hard, makes the point of how hard it was for Michael Jordan compared to what it would be today, is without the 3 seconds, centers and power forwards have to move out of the lane and then come back in. If you give a split second to these point guards with how technically gifted they are, they will find that pass every single time. Do you think they wouldn't find Michael Jordan under the basket every single time?
Checking the notes. He's checking the film right as we speak.
I just wanted to make sure when they had put the defensive 3 seconds on. But I get where you're coming from. Yeah, the defensive 3 seconds is definitely what changed. That's mainly because of Shaq, but it's because Shaq came in and he started dominating the league. It ain't got shit to do with anything else. It's just they wanted to switch it up so that another player wouldn't be able to dominate the league. In the 90s, in every era,
same way they did with Wills.
Always one rule change that is set so that somebody could dominate the league. And then they might switch it up later on so another player cannot dominate the league.
I agree.
But that still doesn't deny the fact that the players from said eras are not that good. The 90s players, like I said...
You keep saying that, but then you don't qualify it. You don't qualify it.
Bro, outside of the Dream Team, Shaq, Peyton, and a couple of others, like real life a couple. Like you said like 5 names and we're like, we discredited Tim Hardaway as soon as we heard it.
I'll just pick a random name, a random name that's outside of the Dream Team, just because I'm looking at Jace. Nick Van Exel.
Nick Van Exel.
He played 10 years ago.
Is he not one of the greatest
Lakers
of all time?
He played in the 2000s and
he played in the 90s, 2000s.
He played in the 90s.
Right before, right around after Magic Johnson retired and Kobe Bryant got drafted, that was Nick Van Exel's little time frame.
Thank you.
He was good.
When they could start carrying the ball, right?
But greatest.
No, he was earlier.
No, that was 96.
He is one of the greatest Lakers.
He out here trying to shit on LeBron for not being one of
No, I'm not saying. I'm not saying like top fucking 5. I'm talking like top 50, top 20, top 30. I don't know, wherever you want to put him. But like, this is the thing you keep saying, like, outside of the Dream Team, you know, Chris Webber, does he play in the Dream Team?
But Webber was drafted, what, 94?
I think.
Just to answer the question, did he play in the Dream Team? Did Grant Hill?
Dream Team 2?
No, but Grant Hill's ass was injured all the time.
Right. Hold on.
Dominic Wilkins?
Hold on.
Clyde Drexler? Oh, Clyde Drexler did. I don't even know why I said Clyde Drexler.
Yeah,
Kevin Johnson?
Kevin Johnson, second round.
Rod Strickland, Sean
Overall.
Kemp, Vin Baker, Mitch Redmonds.
What
Allen
about these
Iverson.
players?
These aren't bad players.
What are you? Where are you
Well,
going?
yeah. Let me
A lot of
say.
these guys are one-dimensional players.
Let me say. I agree. I agree with Rich. These are not bad players. I think Cap, you're making the mistake of saying they're not that good when you should be qualifying it as they're not as talented as players these days.
They're one-dimensional. That's mainly what it.
Yeah,
what
but
it was
again, Cap, we've been over this. The reason they're one-dimensional is because basketball was one-dimensional. It was you played your role. If you were a point guard, you were a point guard. If you were a shooting guard, you were a shooting guard. If you were a small forward, you were a small forward.
Well,
they
then
were
that's
specialists.
what being done with the 90s means. It's accepting the evolution of the game.
It's also saying that they couldn't evolve into this modern game, which is not true.
Yes, that is not true.
We always need shooters. We always need slashers.
But the problem is the reason why we keep going in circles is because we keep bringing it back to the same place. So I think we're all in agreement that if you give these players the sports science, the evolution, the footage, the evolution of the game, like you give Larry Bird a 3-pointer on his driveway growing up, like they are all going to be of today's caliber, most likely.
I shouldn't be laughing at that because I think he could have been the greatest player of all time if he didn't injure himself like that. But come on.
It's not out of the realm of possibility. I think that where the real discussion,
fuck that ball-headed bastard.
where the real discussion is, though, and what it should be at least, is the quality of the game and versus today's quality of the game. There are many aspects in today's game that take away from the quality, such as being able to take extra steps. I think it's one too many steps, probably. Not calling travels, things of that nature that give players
cupping the ball more, obviously. But at the same time, I agree with you. And again, I'm willing to meet you halfway because now, like I said before, the coaching has evolved. So because the coaching has evolved, the players have evolved. They've got more intelligence. They've had to learn more intricate schemes. So, like, this is what I'm saying. I'm not trying to just win the debate. I'm trying to get to the honest answer here. Because, like, my thing is that the reason I'm getting heated is because some of the arguments are facetious, which is fine, you know what I mean? But, like, when it's 4-on-1 or 5-on-1, it gets a bit fucking hard after a while. But the thing is, like, if you're saying, like, you don't get the sports science and you don't get this and you don't get that, well, then obviously this modern day is going to win every time because they've got every single advantage that the 90s didn't have. The players in the 90s didn't have these advantages. And the fact that they were able to ball out in the way they were, and the fact that Michael Jordan was able to be such an athletic beast and be so dominant, and the fact that certain players played way past the eras that they were supposed to play at. And like, Jordan might not have been Jordan when he was at the Wizards, but he could still cook people. On a load management, people would have been scrambling to sign him in free agency, make no mistake about it.
I think the main point of division is one that we actually all agree with, that, like you just admitted, if you take away all the sports science and all that stuff, obviously today's players win. But the argument comes from not people like you who are actually informed and have that opinion, but the old heads who are like, nah, I'm taking them as they were right then and putting them in today's game like a time machine, just right then, and it's gonna work.
Over a season, it's not. Over 7 games, maybe. Do you know what I mean? Maybe. But again, I think the superior coaching and the ability to move the ball. Let me finish my point before you disagree with it. I wasn't even gonna say that the 90s would win, but you were too busy. This is what I mean. This is where the agenda gets in the way of the truth. So what I was saying was, over a 7-game series, it would be an interesting game in terms of the isolation, and I think the 90s players would cook them in isolation. However, when you take into consideration the coaching techniques that we've got now and the spacing and the fact that no player can move faster than the ball, then this generation would absolutely win. Because I don't care how good you are, nobody is quicker than the ball. If you move the ball, you're going to tire out your opposition and you're going to give yourself easier shots. So as good as Jordan and everyone like that would be, and they would still look amazing, and they would still give you all the highlights that you would be like, fucking hell, these might be better than I think they were. They would ultimately lose the game because, like I say, no one moves quicker than the ball. And this is the reason why people need to start watching European basketball, and the reason why Europeans are coming over and cooking everyone in the NBA, because they know that.
That's because they know how to make a skip pass, bro. Like a lot of these guys, and even in today's game, like you might end up convincing me a little bit more after this point. Like in today's game, a lot of guys really don't even know how to do something as simple as a skip pass. A lot of guys still have a hard time with the overhead pass because guys don't really know their own strengths. So when it comes to passing the ball, it is an art to that. And a lot of guys in the 90s and a lot of guys today really don't have that in their bag. It really does come down to a very special specimen of a player to be able to come into the league and early on in their careers, like a LeBron, like a Luka, to be able to make these passes the way they do. But I start to see now in today's game, there are more players that are coming in really being able to make those passes because they're being asked to do so by coaches. And then on top of that, you're watching film, you're seeing certain things. You're going to have no choice but to evolve your game. Because if you don't, you're going to be stuck in the 90s.
And what we're getting now, I'll give you hope for the future. I think this is going to be the best generation of basketball we've ever seen. Because what we're getting now is freak athletes who have unbelievable technical ability and coaches who know how to get the most out of them, at the high end at least anyway. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have more freaks like Wemby coming. And Wemby is kind of like one of a kind right now. He's not going to be for long. There's going to be another Wemby. They're looking for them. They're everywhere.
His younger brother.
It's just, yeah, his younger brother. The kid who's just signed for, committed to Duke.
Oh, Cooper Slide.
Seven. No, the
other guy.
The African guy, 7'5". Yeah. This is
Cooper
gonna be the norm now because all those 7 foot plus players that the NBA were done with. It took one guy to come out and go, nah, we're not done with them again. What we're gonna do is we're gonna teach them the fundamentals of the game. We're gonna understand the sports science. Do you know when Wemby was coming out, everyone said he's got to put on weight, he's got to put on weight, he's got to put on weight, he's got to put on weight. I got fed up of telling people that he didn't need to put on weight. The best sports scientists in the world were telling him, do not put on weight. It is the worst thing you can do. They're just smarter now. Back then, they'd have took someone like Wemby and they would have ruined them. They would have physically battered them. And they would have,
they would have had him doing Minute Bowl, drinking a 6-pack every day so he could gain weight.
John Bradley.
That's crazy.
Bro, that is the dumbest shit ever, bro. You was feeding a man a 6-pack of beer to try to add some weight, bro. You can't tell me motherfuckers wasn't retarded.
But here's the other side of the argument in terms of the 90s and you've got this spot on, Cap. They weren't as bothered about protecting the product as they are now. It's all about the product now. And because of that, that's why the games got easier. That's why the games, in a physical sense, I'm not saying in a cerebral sense, exactly, which is why LeBron's able to put up these inflated numbers. It all comes round. It's a logical argument. No, I'm not saying LeBron's a bad player. But come on, he was playing till 40 in the 90s. It's just not happening. They haven't got the sports science, and the league are trying to kill them. It was just a different game, and the more people can just accept that and say, do you know what, he was good. And in this era, he'd probably be good as well. That's all I'm saying. This idea, like, we're done with the 90s, it's as ridiculous as me saying, like, I'm done with this era. And I say that from time to time because I get frustrated. And the reason I say it is because, like, Joel Embiid's going to the line 20 times for someone fucking sneezing by his aura. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you can't live with that and not get angry about it. But then I calm myself down and I go, as bad as that is, and as bad as, taking more steps to the basket than fucking Frodo took to Mordor, I then put it into perspective and just say, but there's other things about the game that I do enjoy. So I keep coming back. There's things about 90s basketball that I didn't enjoy.
Man, we done with the 90s.
If you're done with the 90s, Cap, I want you to go into your closet. I want you to throw away everything with a Nike tick or a Nike swoosh or a Jordan logo on it.
Do you own Jordan stuff, Cap?
I mean, I
I don't know if he owns
got
one.
Jordan 4s right here. You feel me? Nike Air.
They go in the bin. You're done with the 90s. They go in the
They
bin.
are.
You're done with
I'm
that.
kind of using them to play basketball, and because we is done with the.
Oh, they done up.
ball
He
and
agrees.
I
They done up.
We
No
rocking
Jordan
with
stuff.
Yeezys, baby. Yeezy.
Oh no.
All right,
Good luck playing
All
basketball
right,
in
yeah,
them.
we're ended there.
I'm
Mibs.
not playing basketball in them. I'm playing basketball in these Kyrie Irvings until I get the non-Nike Kyrie Irvings because they wanted to drop my boy because he was right.
I had a pair of Kyrie 3s. You wouldn't think so, but I did.
This is not a shoe show.
Mibs, do you have any gasoline to
Always
pour
a
on
shoe
before we end?
Yeah, I absolutely do not agree with Cap No Cap. I absolutely do not agree with Rich. I think they both should be ashamed of themselves about how they hog the mic incessantly.
I tried my best. to let everybody rock out.
Do me a favor, Mibs. Try and be the only one arguing a point and see how much you need to fucking respond.
Again, if this is y'all's best, y'all need to get better. Man, this is why the NBA is struggling. There is a lack of manageable discourse amongst the fandom, and it's not getting any better.
I think it was all right.
The Emperor has no clothes over and over again.
It fucking wasn't.
I really do think it's because we're done with the 90s, and there's nothing that anybody can say about this, bro. That era is very overrated, and
It's just the Duke fans to say I'm done with the
90s. Then that's probably where you fucked up at, because Charles Barkley is a bum.
Don't even.
He'd be talking too crazy on My Glorious King and the greatest shooter that ever lived.
Your glorious king.
Well, Cap, I'll give you one. Allen Iverson, famously of the 90s, says he takes LeBron over Jordan. But besides that, I want to get your opinion on my assertion that started this whole thing, was that I've adjusted it a little bit. Jordan would be a more athletic Kobe in today's game. How's that?
Okay,
yeah.
33 points per game, a little clean, little mid-range jumper, probably dunking on a couple big men. Sounds about right. Ball hogging.
I'm not mad at that, because the player that Kobe was and the player that Kobe could have been without injury. You're talking in that greatest of all time conversation.
Yeah, I think
5 all time.
I guess
I'm never gonna get mad at someone comparing someone to Kobe. Like, I'm not that guy. So
well, when I did it to start,
when you're saying he's better than Kobe, so I'm good with that.
When I did it to start, you were like, "Oh, that's disrespectful." So that's why I was like,
"No, I was talking about like the whole of Kobe in terms of like, you know, the injuries and stuff like that came back. But Kobe's peak wasn't anywhere near Michael Jordan's peak."
That's because his peak was being second fiddle to Shaq.
At the same time, no, first of all, Shaq's already admitted he was the second fiddle.
Man, he's lying for
No, he's not lying. He's not lying because he's not lying, and I'll tell you why he's not lying. He joined Kobe from a team that won the finals. He left Penny Hardaway to go and play with Kobe Bryant. He doesn't get to say he was. He doesn't get to say he was the man. He doesn't get to. Anyone who leaves a team that gets to the finals to go somewhere else doesn't get to say that they're the man. Sorry. I don't care if it's Shaq. I don't care if it's the 90s. I don't care, whatever. Tim Duncan is the man. He was there from day one, did his thing. Kobe, day one, did his thing. These are the players we should be looking up to. Not these players who've got more stamps on their passport than fucking Paddington Bear.
If he played with T-Mac, Cap, I don't think he would have won as much. But I think T-Mac would have got that Kobe shine as the number one offensive option. So
probably.
So they probably would have stole it from Duncan. You know,
they would have. I feel like in that situation, this will be a whole nother rabbit hole. I feel like in that situation, it's Lakers versus Magic every single year.
Oof.
And
Cap, by the way, congratulations to the Duke Blue Devils, who now only have 3 NCAA tournament championships, because we done with the 90s.
Hey man,
bye Christian Leighton.
Cap, let me ask you this.
Bye Coach K.
Let me ask you this:
He won one in what was that? 2013?
Yeah, but he doesn't sign if we're done with the 90s. He never gets the chance to be the Duke coach.
Well, we would have still.
So actually, I'm not taking 2 away. I'm taking all 5.
Wow. So we don't win with Jason Tatum
Anyways,
now?
Matt, you were
We done with the 90s. You're not winning without Coach K. Look at the state of your team without Coach K now.
So,
Bro, wait until next season, bro. You'll see it.
No,
Cap.
yeah, Cap. I was again. I'm more bothered about the truth, so I did say they're all in for next year. Their recruiting cycle was all about next year, so I'll judge them on next year.
so
They should be playing better now, but like I ain't writing them off.
Cap, if we put Jordan in the game today and he is that more athletic Kobe, I agree with what Rich said. He's in the top 3 conversation still. Where do you think he falls, though? Do you think people still call him the GOAT?
No. I'm gonna be real with y'all. I'm gonna be real. I don't think they call him the GOAT still because of the fact that he would be a great guy in a very mixed bag of a lot of other great guys. Because now, at that situation, now you got Kobe Bryant, you got D Wade, you got T Mac, you got Vince. Then in the later years, you got
Cav, do you know what's the funniest thing about this? We all literally did our greatest. Everyone put Michael Jordan at 1, including you. And Jace had Kobe higher than anyone, but thinks that a more athletic Kobe wouldn't be in the top 3. You put Kobe 1.
Be in the top 3.
You literally put Kobe 1 in your all-time
you know
list.
what I think, because I have not spoken in like the last.
You
15
literally,
minutes.
Matt, back me up here. Did he or did he not put Kobe number 1 on his all-time greatest players, and then say you just don't understand? You just don't understand, man. You had to see Kobe, so I'm giving you a more athletic Kobe, and you're bringing him down.
I'm not bringing him down. I'm just
First
saying.
off,
I'm talking more. I'm thinking more of the media perception of what that player.
I couldn't give a shit about the media perception. The media perception's trying to take Wemby off fucking the Spurs after 1 season that he's not even got to the end of his first season.
But
so fuck what the media say.
I agree, fuck the media, but at the same time, the media is so powerful that it can steal an MVP from Jokic and give it to Embiid. So
I agree, but we all know that Jokic is a far better player than
They also
Embiid.
stole a Defensive Player of the Year award from LeBron, from Shaq, and from Hakeem Olajuwon.
Even Jordan being as great as he is, a lot of his greatness, again, a lot of what started this whole thing was the media perception around Jordan. There's a lot more attention on a lot more guys in the modern era than there was in the 90s. And in the modern era, he has to share that shine with so many other people that he's not going to be the undoubtable GOAT that he was in the 90s, because he has to share that sparkle and share that shine.
I am also tired of everybody glorifying Kobe Bryant to being the closest shooting guard to Michael Jordan. I personally think it might be Dwayne Wade, mainly because of the fact that the way he plays on the defensive side and his slashing ability is incredibly similar to Michael Jordan. A guy
I think he's a mix of the two. You take the best qualities of Wade and Kobe, and you get Michael Jordan, and that's a player that you apparently
think is not better than LeBron James. Absolutely, because neither one of those players that you named is better than LeBron James.
Yeah, but again, Cap, you're destroying your own argument because you literally put Michael Jordan at 1.
Well, I changed my mind because LeBron is still playing. Just got 40K.
See, you've all sat here and said to me that Michael Jordan isn't the GOAT, but when you came to your all-time list, I don't know about you, Daniel, so I'm not going to lump you in this, but everybody else put Michael Jordan at 1.
How many other 90s players did we put up there, though?
In any list I've ever made, I've never put, except for overrated, have I ever put Michael Jordan 1.
I mean, I don't know about your list, nor do I really take them seriously, to be honest, Mims. King of the hearty.
I mean, yeah, you wouldn't take my list if I didn't put Michael Jordan at 1, so I just put him there to appease everybody, to get it out the way. Because if I
no, you didn't. What you did was you said, even I think your exact words were, even as much as I hate the bald-headed bastard, he is the greatest.
I think going off what he said today, though, the reason why he probably still should put him at number 1 is because the gulf between Jordan and his contemporaries is bigger than LeBron and his contemporaries.
Correct, because LeBron played with Stephen Curry, Kevin Durant, Tim Duncan. Like, he had to share the spotlight with a lot of guys. And on top of that, when it comes to the 10 NBA finals that LeBron James has been to, he has only been on the better team 2 of those occasions.
And how did he end up on the better team? Just out of interest.
He had to create it because for some reason the guys in Cleveland did not want to make sure that he had a sustainable team for the first 7 years. We could have got Amari
So,
Stein.
no, I'm okay, Kath. I'm with you in that he had to leave Cleveland because Cleveland's
Shit.
disrespected. Hang
Absolutely
on,
shit.
Cleveland's disrespected an all-time talent. I'm not going to argue that. Did he have to leave, create a super team? Because there was plenty of other offers that he could have gone to. And then did he have to leave that super team as soon as things weren't going his way and try and create another super team?
Yes.
Yes. He had to create the super team the first go round. The second go round, I mean, it was mainly just, contracts and the team was getting old. And I also noticed something that, like, early on, Pat Riley and LeBron used to butt heads. So I think once the contract was up, he was like, I'm out of here. Because he knew he couldn't get his way the way he really wanted it in Miami.
Okay,
So
so
he
who
went back
would
to
you
Cleveland.
say was the best franchise to play for after the Bulls in the 90s?
The best franchise to
As
play
the
for?
star or just like as the number one?
No, what team if you were wanting to pick a team to win with?
You can't say the Spurs because the Spurs don't win until the end of the damn.
What time period is this?
This is like the early 90s, right?
After say like 97 onwards.
Oh, so
Wait,
after,
are we just picking like
I did.
the
Yeah,
best?
the Spurs. Yeah, the Spurs.
Okay,
Spurs
so-
or maybe the Knicks.
So if Michael Jordan
Miami.
goes to the Spurs or the Knicks, they win.
Miami. Or
Miami, they win. That's how dominant he was.
No.
He didn't need to. He didn't need to build a super team. He could have. No, it's a fair comparison. He could have gone if he was in free agency, and he could have gone to any team, right? And he'd have picked the best team available. He would have had 9 rings now.
I mean,
at least.
Not
Miami
Heat
not
were the
2,
second best team.
not 3.
But LeBron
The
didn't
Spurs-
pick the best team though because they
He
were
also-
like,
yeah, that's
He
also
did with the Heat. He did with the Heat.
weren't they like
When
a
he-
7
when he
seed?
picked the best-
He were
No,
really bad.
when he knew that Chris Bosh was going, when he set it all up, we all knew that the Heat were
that wasn't,
the best.
but they had to make that team what it was, and even with LeBron, Wade, and Bosh, the rest of the lineup was not constructed fully, and that team that they put together in 2011 was not a good team. That was not a championship.
They were
They
the
won.
favorites.
They got there because of the talent, but they were
They
not.
were exactly. They were favorites because of high end talent, and they had enough to make it work around them.
But it wasn't sustainable to beat a team like the Mavericks that swept your boy Kobe.
I mean, I'm not taking it. I'm not taking anything away from the
Kobe
Mavs
catching
'cause-
strays for no
Stray?
fucking reason.
Because, bro, motherfuckers be
I'm
gassing
just
Kobe up,
chilling here,
and
man.
fans
I
got
Retired
Kobe
Phil
out
Jackson.
40. It is like 2 weeks before LeBron even played in the finals. Kobe was getting cooked by 40. Andrew Bynum had to elbow JJ Barea out the air, and he still made the layup. Like that's
Yeah,
crazy.
but Kobe had said goodbye to the rim at this point, though, and he wasn't Kobe.
Yeah, to an
So,
extent.
not really a fair comparison. Whereas
LeBronny.
Bronny ain't saying goodbye to no rims, but he's still getting swept by the Denver Nuggets.
That's because Jokic is the best player in the league.
Agreement for the next NBA
But this goes back to what I'm saying. Players like Jokic, players like Luka Doncic, players like Wemby, and I'll give you Shea. I'll give you Shea.
Give Shea his flowers.
I'll give you Shea. You can't. No, I was giving Shea his flowers beforehand, but now people have gone over the top with Shea, so I'm trying to dial it back. That's where I sit with that. Yeah. Shea's an interesting player because he's like one of the most technically gifted players I've ever seen. Like the athleticism is not really there. There's no flair to his game, but like he just is so consistent. Like he's 30 points.
I
You can
think
start the game and you're 30 points down. There's not many players you can say that about in the NBA.
I think that's a good spot to kind of tease next week's topic, which is going to be Shea versus Luka. So be ready for that one. Daniel,
I wonder which side I'll be on.
Daniel, do you have anything to add? I know you've been a little quiet these last 10 minutes.
It's okay. I knew like the main traction of this segment was mainly like what Mib said, like Cap versus Rich. I had a point. One last thing before we end the segment. Something I thought about, just food for thought. The quality of the 90s basketball, obviously the 80s is worse than the 90s in terms of quality. We're not arguing. But is the '90s was still in the early part was still kind of like the '80s, and then it started to evolve.
Yep.
It almost makes me feel like that's why N1 Street Ball was created, because
Yeah.
people were tired of watching the '90s.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think that's fair.
Like, I don't know. I just thought about that. I know obviously it has to do with late '90s and early 2000s, but
With that being said, shout out Escalade. RIP to him, bro. The Jokic before Jokic.
RIP Escalade. And, just I only bring that up because what Rich said about like how he thinks like, yeah, there were talented players, but they weren't allowed to showcase their abilities because of the coaching being like, hey, well, you're going to have to stay in this one spot for the whole time.
Weren't allowed to even learn new abilities, really.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
look
like you're
at
going to have
look
to
at the
do this role.
triangle. Look at what the triangle did to Jordan and
Talk
Kobe.
about the
They
fucking
were
triangle, for the
just
love of
they were
God.
just choked to death.
Yeah. So I just wanted to bring that up because I think we learned from Jordan and everyone else throughout the '90s evolving kind of to like the Allen Iversons of the world. And then on the side, you have N1 Street Ball, and then that devolves. And then the 2000s, I don't know. It's just interesting
The
to point
greatness
that out.
that is LeBron and Carmelo Anthony came into the league.
I think, well, first quick stat, I didn't realize, the greatest scorer of all time could never crack 29 points a game. Like that was crazy. But besides the Melo hate, I think the evolution, when you talk about it, why Jordan would suffer a little bit is because all the best players, not all the best players, but every player in the league pretty much emulated Jordan and took from him and became the best version of Jordan they could be. So he would be going against all of his own clones, and he would outshine most of them, but it would still
Who
take
knows
away.
Jordan better than Jordan?
I'm not saying he wouldn't, but in terms of like the visual spectacle of everything, like nowadays when we see a Jordan type play, we're like, that was pretty good. But if we would have saw a Jordan type play when no one was doing it, that's when it's like, oh my God, he just switched hands. He's a god.
That's absolutely fair.
He has no regard for human life.
It was more about just power in the 90s. Like you had to
Shout out
physically
to
bully
Anthony
your way.
Edwards. He'll probably have Jordan on a string.
Oh, there we go again, crowning a kid before he's actually done anything.
Yeah.
Yup, I'm gonna crown that young man right here, right now, and tell you that he ain't gonna be shit more than a second round exit.
I'll give him credit for this. He's the first player since LeBron to do a better chase down block than LeBron, because that chase down block was insane.
For the game at that. Oh my God.
There was one talking head out there, maybe it was Skip, who was like, he was playing with his food. He didn't need to do all that. He was overkilling. He was showboating.
He absolutely didn't need to do it. He started at like half court.
It's like he said he didn't need to jump that high.
He needed to win the game. Yes. This is why he's getting 87,000.
The thing is,
that's a topic for another day. How as soon as Shannon Sharp left, how Skip Bayless is just a shell of himself and should probably get off the air.
Yeah.
I mean,
but
he
I
probably
also
should have
can't,
got off
bro.
before. The thing is, though, it's all about balance. And
Yeah.
there is no balance on that show anymore.
No, not at all.
Yep. But yeah,
Uncle Shay.
I think that's going to do it for this extra long edition. To answer the question, are we done with the 90s? Really,
Yes.
no. But for fun, yes, we are. To piss off Rich,
No,
yes, we are.
we're not.
90s.
No, we are here to
don't
respect
fucking
all
nice.
areas of
Shut up.
basketball, including this one. And I'm telling you now, you're going to start seeing more of the 90s as these Euros continue to take over, because the fundamentals are back, baby.
That was the thing. That was the point I had earlier, and not to stretch this shit out even longer, but the reason why the gulf between Europe and America is because of the AAU system. Back in the day, it was a lot closer. It was a lot more
Yo, that
comparative.
is so crazy that you
At
said
the end
that,
of the
bro.
day-
I literally
at the end
have
of the
right
day,
here
it
that
all
today's
comes down
era
to
of AAU
capitalism
may
is
have
bad.
ruined the way a child prepares to become a professional athlete.
It absolutely does, because today in AAU you play like 4 to 6 games a week and practice once, and in Europe it's the opposite, how it should be.
That is actually wicked, bro. One practice, I used to hate that as a child, bro. Right before I do my little in-town joint, one practice, I'm like, bro, how the fuck am I supposed to know what these motherfuckers do after one practice? All I know is who can't make a layup and who can make a jump shot. I don't know nothing about these players.
Yep.
That's absolutely crazy. But with that being said, we'll bring this up next week.
Yep.
Where SGA versus Luka brings back the fundamentals to the game because both of those guys can shoot the ball like nobody's
Both
business.
fundamentally sound players. Love it. This is
Absolutely.
basketball, baby.
Yep. Thank you guys
And
for
in
watching.
the middle of March Madness, bro, if you guys are watching with us right now, I appreciate you, but you need to go throw on one of them college games because shit is hitting the fan right now.
He's he ain't capping. Thanks for watching, you guys. See you next time.